Japan Airlines Co. Limited is the flag carrier airline of Japan and the second largest in the country behind All Nippon Airways. It is headquartered in Shinagawa, Tokyo, Japan, and its main hubs are Tokyo's Narita International Airport and Tokyo International Airport, as well as Osaka's Kansai International Airport and Osaka International Airport. JAL Group companies include Japan Airlines, JAL Express, Japan Air Commuter, Japan Transocean Air and Ryukyu Air Commuter for domestic feeder services, and JAL Cargo for cargo and mail services. JAL Group operations include scheduled and non-scheduled international and domestic passenger and cargo services to 220 destinations in 35 countries worldwide, including code shares. The group has a fleet of 279 aircraft. In the fiscal year ended the 31st of March 2009, the airline group carried over 52 million passengers and over 1.1 million tons of cargo and mail. Japan Airlines, JAL Express, and Japan Transocean Air are members of the One World Airline Alliance. JAL was established in 1951 and became the national airline of Japan in 1953. After over 3 decades of service and expansion, the airline was fully privatized in 1987. In 2002, the airline merged with Japan Air System, Japan's third-largest airline, and became the sixth-largest airline in the world by passengers carried. Japan Airlines is currently an official sponsor of Japan Football Association, Japan national football team, Shimizu S-Pulse, and Consadole Sapporo. All Nippon Airways, the largest airline in Japan, is JAL's main competitor. History. Regulated era. Founding. Japan Airlines Co. Limited was established on 1 August 1951, with the government of Japan recognizing the need for a reliable air transportation system to help Japan grow in the aftermath of the World War II. The airline was founded with an initial capital of 100 million yen, and its headquarters located in Ginza, Chuo, Tokyo. Between 27 and 29 August, the airline operated invitational flights on a Douglas DC-3 Kansai, leased from Philippine Airlines. On 25 October, Japan's first post-war domestic airline service was inaugurated, using a Martin II-02 aircraft, named Mokusei, and crew lease from Northwest Airlines. On 1 August 1953, the Diet of Japan passed the Japan Airlines Company Act, forming a new state-owned Japan Airlines on 1 October, which assumed all assets and liabilities of its private predecessor. By 1953, the JAL network extended northward from Tokyo to Sapporo and Misawa, and westward to Nagoya, Osaka, Iwakuni, and Fukuoka. On 2 February 1954, the airline began international flights, carrying 18 passengers from Tokyo to San Francisco on a Douglas DC-6B City of Tokyo via Wake Island and Honolulu. The flights between Tokyo and San Francisco are still Flights 1 and 2, to commemorate its first international service. The early flights were advertised as being operated by American crews and serviced by United Airlines in San Francisco. The airline, in addition to the Douglas DC-3, Douglas DC-6B and Martin II-02s, operated Douglas DC-4 and Douglas DC-7C during the 1950s. JAL flew to Hong Kong via Okinawa by 1955, having pared down its domestic network to Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, and Sapporo. By 1958, the Hong Kong route had been extended to Bangkok and Singapore. With DC-7Cs, JAL was able to fly non-stop between Seattle and Tokyo in 1959. Jet era. In 1960, the airline took delivery of its first jet, a Douglas DC-8 named Fuji, introducing jet service on the Tokyo-Honolulu-San Francisco route. JAL went on to operate a fleet of 51 DC-8s, retiring the last of the type in 1987. Fuji flew until 1974 and was then used as a maintenance training platform until 1989. Its nose section was stored at Haneda Airport and eventually put on public display at the JAL Sky Museum in March 2014. JAL also began flying to Seattle and Hong Kong in 1960. At the end of 1961, JAL had transpolar flights from Tokyo to Seattle, Copenhagen, London and Paris via Anchorage, Alaska, and to Los Angeles and San Francisco via Honolulu, Hawaii. During the 1960s, JAL flew to many new cities, including Moscow, New York and Busan. DC-8 flights to Europe via Anchorage started in 1961. Flights to Europe via India started in 1962, initially with Convair 880s. By 1965, Japan Airlines was headquartered in the Tokyo building in Marunouchi, Chiyoda, Tokyo. By this time, over half of JAL's revenue was generated on trans-Pacific routes to the United States, and the airline was lobbying the United States for fifth freedom rights to fly transatlantic routes from the East Coast. The Trans-Pacific route was extended east from San Francisco to New York in November 1966 and to London in 1967. Flights between San Francisco and London ended in December 1972. Between 1967 and 1969, JAL had an agreement with Aeroflot to operate a joint service between Tokyo and Moscow using a Soviet Tupolev Tu-114. The flight crew included one JAL member, and the cabin crew had 5 members each from Aeroflot and JAL. The weekly flights started in April 1967. In May, the schedule was 10 hours 35 minutes Moscow to Tokyo and 11 hours 25 minutes to return. In 1972, under the 45-47th system, the so-called Aviation Constitution, enacted by the Japanese government, JAL was granted flag carrier status to operate international routes. The airline was also designated to operate domestic trunk routes in competition with All Nippon Airways and Toa Domestic Airlines. The signing of a civil air transport agreement between China and Japan on the 20th of April 1974 caused the suspension of air routes between Taiwan and Japan on the 21st of April. A new subsidiary, Japan Asia Airways, was established on the 8th of August 1975, and air services between the two countries were restored on the 15th of September. During the 1970s, the airline bought the Boeing 727, Boeing 747 and McDonnell Douglas DC-10 for its growing routes within Japan and to other countries. In the 1980s, the airline performed special flights for the Crown Prince Akihito and Crown Princess Michiko of Japan, Pope John Paul II, and for Japanese prime ministers, until the introduction of the dedicated government aircraft using two Boeing 747-400, operated as Japanese Air Force One and Japanese Air Force Two. During that decade, the airline introduced new Boeing 747-100 Senior, Boeing 747 Sud and Boeing 767 jets to the fleet, and retired the Boeing 727s and Douglas DC-8s. In 1978, JAL started flights to Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro via Anchorage and San Juan. The stopover was changed to Los Angeles in 1982 and to New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport in 1999. Until 2009, the airline operated Fifth Freedom flights between New York and Sao Paulo and between Vancouver and Mexico City. Deregulated era. Japan began considering airline deregulation in the late 1970s, with the government announcing the abandoning of the 45-47th system in 1985. In 1987, Japan Airlines was completely privatized, and the other two airlines in Japan, All Nippon Airways and Japan Air System, were permitted to compete with JAL on domestic and international routes. Increased competition resulted in changes to the airline's corporate structure, and it was reorganized into three divisions: international passenger service, domestic passenger service, and cargo service. Japan Airlines began the 1990s with flights to evacuate Japanese citizens from Iraq before the start of the Gulf War. In October 1990, Japan Air Charter was established, and in September 1996, an agreement with the Walt Disney Company made Japan Airlines the official airline of Tokyo Disneyland. JAL Express was established in April 1997, with Boeing 737 aircraft. In the 1990s, the airline encountered further economic difficulties stemming from recessions in the United States and United Kingdom, plus a domestic downturn. Following years of profit since 1986, the airline began to post operating losses in 1992. Cost-cutting, including the formation of the low-cost JAL Express domestic subsidiary and the transfer of tourist operations to JALways, helped return the airline to profitability in 1999. In 1997, the airline flew Japanese Prime Minister Yutaro Hashimoto to Peru to help negotiate in the Japanese embassy hostage crisis. Japan Airlines placed orders for Boeing 777s during the 1990s, allowing for fleet renewal. It was one of 8 airlines participating in the Boeing 777 design process, shaping the design to the specifications. JAS merger in 2001, Japan Air System and Japan Airlines agreed to merge, and on the 2nd of October 2002, they established a new holding company called Japan Airlines System, forming a new core of the JAL Group. Aircraft liveries were changed to match the design of the new JAL Group. At the time, the merged group of airlines was the 6th largest in the world by passengers carried. On the 1st of April 2004, JAL changed its name to Japan Airlines International and JAS changed its name to Japan Airlines Domestic. JAS flight codes were changed to JAL flight codes. JAS check-in desks were refitted in JAL livery and JAS aircraft were gradually repainted. On the 26th of June 2004, the parent company Japan Airlines System was renamed to Japan Airlines Corporation. Following the merger, two companies operated under the JAL brand, Japan Airlines International and Japan Airlines Domestic. Japan Airlines Domestic had primary responsibility for JAL's large network of intra-Japan flights, while JAL International operated both international and trunk-domestic flights. On the 1st of October 2006, Japan Airlines International and Japan Airlines Domestic merged into a single brand, Japan Airlines International. The airline applied to join oneworld on the 25th of October 2005. Japan Airlines claimed that its oneworld membership would be in the best interests of the airline's plans to further develop the airline group and its strong commitment to provide the very best to its customers. Japan Airlines, together with Malef and Royal Jordanian, joined the alliance on the 1st of April 2007. On the 1st of April 2008, JAL merged the operations of its subsidiary Japan Asia Airways into JAL mainline operations. JAA had operated all JAL group flights between Japan and Taiwan between 1975 and 2008 as a separate entity due to the special political status of Taiwan. Restructuring in 2009, Japan Airlines suffered steep financial losses, despite remaining Asia's largest airline by revenue. As a result, the airline embarked on staff cuts and route cutbacks in an effort to reduce costs. The carrier also received a 100 billion yen credit line from the Japanese government that year. In September 2009, Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism formed a task force aimed at aiding a corporate turnaround at JAL, which examined various cost-cutting and strategic partnership proposals. One proposal considered was to merge JAL with ANA, which would create a single larger international airline and replace Japan Airlines International. However, media reports suggested that this proposal would be opposed by ANA given its comparatively better financial performance as an independent carrier. The task force also examined possible partnerships with foreign carriers. After weeks of speculation, JAL applied for protection under the Corporate Rehabilitation Law on the 19th of January 2010. JAL expects to receive a 300 billion yen cash injection and have debts worth 730 billion yen waived, in exchange for which it will cut its capital to zero, cut unprofitable routes and reduce its workforce by 15,700 employees, a third of its 47,000 total. JAL's main creditors originally objected to the bankruptcy declaration, but changed their mind after the Enterprise Turnaround Initiative Corporation of Japan recommended court protection. According to a senior bank official, shares of JAL were delisted from the Tokyo Stock Exchange on the 20th of February 2010. Kazuo Inamori, founder of Kyocera and KDDI, took over as CEO of JAL. Transport Minister Seiji Maehara personally visited Kyocera headquarters in late 2009 in order to persuade Inamori to accept the position. Task Force leader Shinjiro Takagi believed that it was necessary to appoint a proven entrepreneur CEO in order to fix the various problems at JAL. Japan Air Commuter President Masaru Onishi was promoted to president of JAL. In May, JAL began to see an increase in its passenger numbers by 1.1% year-on-year. In August, it was reported that JAL would cut 19,133 jobs from its workforce of 47,000 by the end of March 2015, whilst also increasing capacity, in an attempt to make the business viable. Rivalry between Delta and American. Although JAL ultimately exited bankruptcy while remaining in the One World Alliance, JAL was seriously considering accepting a strategic investment from Delta Airlines and joining the SkyTeam alliance during the period between September 2009 and February 2010. JAL also had talks with SkyTeam members Air France-KLM and Korean Air regarding the potential involvement. The Delta deal was favored by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism because Delta had an extensive global network and had the largest Japanese operation of any foreign airline, which it had inherited through its merger with Northwest Airlines. MLIT also supported a transaction with Air France-KLM because it was a healthier company than American. American planned to team up with One World Alliance members British Airways and Qantas to make a joint offer to recapture recapitalized JAL. British Airways said that it was attempting to persuade JAL to remain part of One World rather than aligning itself with Delta and SkyTeam, while American CEO Gerard Arpey said that American and One World remained committed to a partnership with Japan Airlines, as long as it remained a major international carrier, and reiterated his encouragement for JAL to stay with One World during ceremonies to welcome Mexicana into the alliance. In an interview with the Asahi Shimbun on 1 January 2010, JAL President Haruka Nishimatsu stated his preference in forming a partnership with Delta over American, and the Yomiuri Shimbun reported shortly thereafter that JAL and the Japanese government-backed Enterprise Turnaround Initiative Corporation would likely choose to form a business and capital tie-up with Delta, as part of which JAL would enter SkyTeam and reduce its international flight operations in favor of code-share agreements with Delta, and that American Airlines had begun procedures to end negotiations with JAL. Both JAL and American denied the report. The Wall Street Journal then reported that American Airlines raised its JAL investment offer by $300 million to $1.4 billion, and in separate comments to the press, Delta President Ed Bastian said that Delta was willing and able to raise additional capital through third-party resources. Quote, after JAL filed for bankruptcy, there were further media reports that JAL would leave One World in favor of SkyTeam, but JAL President Masaru Onishi said on 1 February that the new JAL leadership was seriously reviewing the issue from scratch, without being influenced by previous discussions, and its decision on an alliance partner would be made soon. On 7 February, several news outlets reported that JAL would decide to keep its alliance with American Airlines and end talks with Delta. In a Morian ETIC officials, according to the reports, decided that switching alliances from One World to SkyTeam would be too risky and could hinder JAL's ability to turn around quickly. 2 days later, JAL officially announced that they would strengthen the partnership with American, including a joint application for antitrust immunity on trans-Pacific routes. The airline would also fortify its relationship with other partners in the One World Alliance. Post-bankruptcy developments. JAL emerged from bankruptcy protection in March 2011. In July, ETIC selected Nomura Holdings, Daiwa Securities, Mitsubishi UFJ, Morgan Stanley, Mizuho Securities, SMBC and Nikko Securities to underwrite the sale of its equity stake in JAL, without specifying amounts or dates. On 6 January 2012, JAL announced its intent to relist its shares on the Tokyo Stock Exchange in an initial public offering of up to 1 trillion yen, which would be the largest offering in Japan in more than a year. The airline completed its IPO on the first section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange on 19 September 2012. The Enterprise Turnaround Initiative Corporation of Japan sold all its holdings in JAL for 650 billion yen, greater than its 350 billion yen investment in 2010. Even though it was oversubscribed several times, post-IPO increase of the stock was close to 1%. Following its exit from bankruptcy protection, JAL began several new partnerships within the One World Alliance. The Trans-Pacific joint venture between JAL and American commenced in April 2011. JAL formed Jetstar Japan, a low-cost carrier joint venture with Qantas subsidiary Jetstar Airways, in July. In 2012, JAL and British Airways parent company International Airlines Group submitted applications to the Japanese government and European Union, respectively, in seeking a joint venture business operation for flights between Japan and Europe. Finnair applied to join the JV with IAG in July 2013, in conjunction with JAL starting new non-stop service to Helsinki.